Imagine a chain, each link representing an element of anxiety. This chain, seemingly unbreakable, holds us in its grip, often when we least expect it. The first link in this chain is the symptoms. Those racing thoughts, the tightening chest, the cold sweat, all signs that anxiety has seized control. The next link is doubt. We doubt our ability to cope with these symptoms, and this doubt feeds our anxiety, making it grow stronger. This leads us to the third link, distress. Overwhelmed by the symptoms and crippled by doubt, we find ourselves in a state of distress. The final link, the one that completes the chain, is avoidance. We start avoiding situations that trigger our anxiety, hoping to escape it. But in reality, this avoidance only strengthens the chain. This is the chain of anxiety, a loop that can seem impossible to break. Avoidance might seem like the easy way out, but it's a deceptive trap. Picture this. You're terrified of heights, so you skip out on a family trip to a mountain resort. You breathe a sigh of relief, but what you've really done is reinforce the fear. The next time an opportunity arises that involves heights, the fear is even stronger. You've fed it, nurtured it, made it bigger and tougher than before. This is the problem with avoidance. It offers momentary comfort, a quick escape from the prickling fear and discomfort. But the long-term impact? It's like watering a weed, helping it grow, spread, and take over the garden of your mind. Each time you sidestep a fear, you're turning up the volume on your anxiety. You see, avoidance doesn't eliminate anxiety, it just pushes it down the road, amplifies it, and hands it back to you at a later date. Avoidance only feeds the chain of anxiety, making it stronger. Safety behaviors, while comforting, can actually reinforce our anxiety. This might seem counterintuitive, but let's think about it. Safety behaviors are actions we take to prevent or alleviate anxiety. These might be things like always having a bottle of water nearby to quell panic attacks or constantly checking the weather forecast to avoid unexpected rain. On the surface, these behaviors seem like they're helping. After all, they're giving us a sense of control, right? But here's the catch, they're really just temporary fixes. By relying on these safety behaviors, we're not actually facing the fears that trigger our anxiety. Instead, we're essentially telling ourselves that we can't handle the situation without these safety nets. This can lead to a vicious cycle where we become more reliant on these behaviors and our anxiety around the feared situations increases. In the end, safety behaviors can become another link in the chain of anxiety, perpetuating the cycle. The anxiety cycle is a loop that can feel inescapable. It starts with a distressing thought, a flicker of fear. This tiny spark ignites a wildfire of worry, causing our hearts to race and our minds to reel. To quell this discomfort, we often resort to avoidance, seeking refuge in the familiar and the safe. This offers a fleeting sense of relief, a momentary respite, but in the long run it only serves to fuel our fears. The more we avoid, the larger our anxiety grows, creating a vicious cycle that seems impossible to break. This is the anxiety cycle, a constant dance between anxiety and avoidance, a never-ending loop of distress and relief. But remember, every cycle can be reversed. By understanding the patterns of our anxiety, we can begin to break free from its chains, one link at a time. Breaking the cycle of anxiety is possible, and it starts with facing our fears. Picture a diver at the edge of a high cliff, heart pounding, staring down into the blue sea below. The fear is real, but so is the potential for freedom. This is where we find ourselves when we confront our anxieties. And this confrontation doesn't have to be a leap of faith. It can be a series of small steps, each one taking us closer to the edge, each one a victory in itself. These steps are the keys to changing our anxiety response. With each step, we chip away at the cycle, slowly but surely dismantling it. We face the fear, we feel the anxiety, but we keep going. And with every step, we gain a little more control, a little more freedom, a little more peace. By facing our fears, we can start to break the chain of anxiety. Imagine the anxiety cycle, but reversed. We're not talking about avoidance here, but confrontation. Confrontation of your fears, your anxieties, your worries. Picture this. You're standing at the edge of a diving board, staring at the water below. You're afraid, apprehensive, but you jump anyway. That leap, that moment of facing your fear, that's what we're talking about. Sure, it's uncomfortable. It might even spike your anxiety in the short term. But guess what? With every leap, with every confrontation, you're building resilience. You're teaching your mind that fear is not a monster to run from, but a challenge to face. Over time, this repeated confrontation builds your strength, your confidence. You're not just managing your anxiety better, you're reshaping your response to it. This is the reversed cycle, the broken chain of anxiety. Breaking the cycle of anxiety is not just a theory, it's applicable in the real world. Now, let's imagine a scenario. You're standing at the entrance of a bustling mall, feeling your heart race and your palms sweat. This is the moment where the cycle of anxiety wants to take over, to make you retreat. But you choose to challenge it. You walk in, maybe just for a minute, maybe just to the nearest bench. And the next day, you do it again, perhaps for 2 minutes or maybe to the second bench. Each small victory, each moment of exposure, chips away at the chain of anxiety. Over time, what once seemed overwhelming becomes manageable, even ordinary. This is how we apply the theory to the real world, how we break the cycle. With understanding and practice, we can break the chain of anxiety in our day-to-day lives.